I think the best advice, not the best advice, I think the advice I would give is to be self indulgent as much as you can. I think sometimes when you're making a comic, you're like, I want it to be the best, and I can't do this idea because this idea is popular, and I like got to do this and this. I think you should just like be totally self-indulgent. Like if you love vampires, make a vampire comic. It doesn't matter if there's a lot of vampires. I think you should just totally build up on your passion because I think the passion aspect is what's going to like you through the whole project. So I think it's just good to be completely self-indulgent.
Hello, my name is Annie. I am very excited today to be starting a new podcast segment of the channel all about interviewing webcomic artists. I've dabbled in this world myself and am actually going to be launching a new Webtoon this Saturday. Very excited for that. Keep an eye out for it. Like a lot of you, I'm sure, who are listening, I spend a lot of time on the computer and I love to listen to fellow creative people while I am creating. I find that there are not a ton of podcasts specific to comic book creators, and even more specifically than that, webcomic creators, and so I am seeking to remedy that. And believe it or not, for this very first episode, we have none other than the creator of Castle Swimmer, Wendy Lian Martin. What? I don't know why she agreed to talk to me, but she did. I think you're really going to enjoy hearing what she has to say. Without further ado, let's go to the interview. For those who might not know, could you introduce yourself and perhaps tell us some of the things that you are known for?
My name is Wendy Martin, and I make a webtoon, online webtoon called Castle Swimmer, one of their featured comics, and that's pretty much all I'm known for, I think.
Well, it's a good thing to be known for. It's very popular and very good as well. So
Thank
we'll
you.
definitely be getting into that. Yeah. Before we get into that, though, could you give us some backstory on how you got into comics and just art in general?
I was always the art kid, so I think it was like a natural thing. It's like one of those kids that like you have this obsession and it becomes your entire identity. Like if you play Yu-Gi-Oh all the time, you're the Yu-Gi-Oh kid. So I was like the art kid. So it was just a natural process of continuing that obsession, I think.
Definitely. Did you notice a particular time where it would like became serious for you, or did you go to school specifically for art?
I did. I was going to go to SCAD, I think. Like the money scared me, so I was like, I'm just going to go to my community college for a little bit.
What did you study at your community college?
I just did like their fine art classes that they had available. Like they had a painting class and a few different like drawing courses and art history, kind of those basics. And they were really good. I learned a lot from them. I wasn't sure I would because I was like comparing it to like, oh, this nice college. I'm not going to get anything out of my community college, but it is very much what you put into it, I think. So I did learn a lot.
Definitely. And it's nice to know that you perhaps have had a more traditional training and how that's translated to digital media now.
Yeah, yeah, it was really good, I think.
So, speaking of which, why did you choose webcomics as the way to tell the story of Castle Swimmer as opposed to traditional print comics?
Well, I think the medium is kind of like, along with everything in general, is kind of pushing towards being online. Um, and also, I had been posting art online for when I was younger, so I just like it felt natural to me to continue doing that. Best way to like share quickly with multiple people is to like put it online. Also, I think working digitally, you have a lot of advantage compared to traditional work. Well, I think there's pros and cons to both. But for me, it was like, ah, yes, I love the undo button. I love all these effects and these programs. I love it.
Definitely. I can see that for sure. Do you think that there are certain advantages or disadvantages to a platform like Webtoon specifically?
I think so. I think Webtoon especially gives like Canvas creators, people who start posting, a lot of advantages because I always see they do a good job of like propping up some of the newer works or people that aren't getting seen as much. So I think it's a really good platform for that, just based on what I've seen.
Could you speak on a little bit about your experience in how becoming a featured creator happened?
Oh yeah, pretty much just like everybody else. I just started putting. I actually didn't know that much about Webtoon. I was like very much into Tapas, which is a different comic hosting site, and like
Mhm.
everything else except for Webtoon. And I was like, this Webtoon, whatever. So I just gonna just gonna slap my comic on there. It was like not formatted correctly. It was like all jumbled up. It was hard to read on their platform. And I was like, well, it's there. And then I ended up getting uh, contacted, but I have no idea how they found me. But I ended up getting an email from them, and they're like, "Hey, do you want to work for us?" I'm like, "Oh, I can quit being a waitress and do comics full time because I posted my comic on their site. Wow."
Wow. So is this just as far as like the business side of it, is this like your main revenue stream or do you have multiple streams of revenue?
Yeah, this is my full time job. Um,
Wow. Is that kind of a dream come true?
it is, it is, and it's amazing. I almost deleted the email that had my dream job in it, so I'm glad I didn't do that.
Yeah, I guess it's funny how this is happening so quickly is
I
with
know it did happen very fast, but I was very, very happy.
uh, speaking of actually publishing on Webtoon, could you take us through the process of what it's like from writing to actually pressing that post button?
Oh, so so creating an episode, you have like if you're like some comics post like twice a week, smaller comics that are only like 20 to 30 panels, and then other comics post like once a week, and those episodes are like they have to be at least like 50 panels, and it's like 50 full colored panels is like kind of around your how much you have to make per week for an episode. And getting it done in a week, I kind of have like daily goals, and I have recently I hired two people to help me get it finished, which has been very good because I can actually get things done on time now. But I have daily goals throughout the week. On Sunday, I kind of like I write the episodes, and then I like do the thumbnails and kind of make like a draft and send it to my editor for her to get back to me. And then like the next day I start working on the sketch like right away because I don't really have time to wait for her to get back to me. So I'm just like hope she likes this because I'm starting it right away. And then the next day I like finish the sketch, and then 2 days after that I'm working on the line art. And then when the line art's done, I send it to two people that are helping me out with the flat colors and coloring backgrounds. And I send that to them. And while they're doing their work, hopefully I take my day off. I've kind of figured it out to where I can take a day off now, so that's been very helpful. And after that, I start the next episodes, and then at one point they'll get back to me with the previous episodes, and I'll finish up the colors. So it's a little bit jumbled up, the process, but it's kind of it's just a struggle to like get it out as quickly as possible.
Of course, and we will definitely talk about like time management and all that good stuff as well. Just because I'm really curious about that.
Mhm.
As far as having posts prepared ahead of time, because from what I understand, people can like support you through like fast passes and
Yeah.
get those episodes up. Is the season that is currently on already completely finished?
No.
Okay.
um, I've heard a lot of other. I think some of the other artists will also kind of like talk about the struggle to keep a buffer so you're ahead of dates. When I first launched the season, they were like, "We want." They're always very like, want you to be prepared and helping you out. So my staff is like, we want you to have like launch with like 15 episodes ahead. So you have like a huge buffer, and you're ready to go. I'm like, cool, I can do that. I can make 15 episodes. And I didn't really do that. I had like how many episodes? I launched was like 10 episodes, like 9 or 10 episodes. And then like as it was going, I quickly fell behind on episodes. I'm like, oh man, I gotta hire assistants so I can keep up with this. So I hired assistants, and now I am ahead by 3 episodes, but I am maintaining the 3 episodes buffer so far.
Well, yeah, good for you. I'm sure a lot of us can relate to that for sure. And especially if it being such a high quality webtoon as well, that's impressive that you can keep ahead and that you have people helping you out. That's nice as well.
It is very nice. I should have done that like ages ago.
As far as the actual processes that are involved, I love talking about storytelling and writing. And something I noticed specifically about Castle Swimmer, and that I think you deserve a lot of props for, is that the writing is really good.
Oh, thank you.
Sometimes web comics, and this is just a generalization, but sometimes just being a long format of storytelling can sometimes meander with their plot, and that doesn't seem to be the case with you at all. It seems that you have a very clear vision that sort of allows you to have a lot of foreshadowing and foresight and these shocking moments that feel really earned. So I was just wondering if you could speak a little on how you write and if it's a traditional script or what that's like for you.
Oh, thank you. I'm so happy you think so. I kind of, I think like most people, I kind of have an idea of like everything that's gonna happen, like the big points. I kind of treat each season like its own thing, like its own separate story, and I have like goals and a plan for like what's gonna happen in that season, which has been very helpful. And um, I have all the big things I know that I want to happen, but since you're like it's coming out in like smaller portions weekly, I kind of like try to leave some wiggle room open for other things to happen and for changes to make. Just so like I try to make each episode like a little bit satisfying in some way. Like you come away from it like, oh, this cute thing happens, and now I'm satisfied. Even though like there'll be a bunch of people in the comments that are like too short, not satisfied, but you know that kind of comes with it. And a lot of times, it ends up. I think the story ends up being much longer than I initially plans, and I think that's worked out well because I have this main storyline, but then it's like, well, this episode doesn't line up or needs more panels, and so I kind of end up like extrapolating on like smaller things, and that like enriches like the story or the characters a little bit, and you get like more invested into certain moments or certain characters just because I'm trying to balance out episodes or like make the pacing feel better in certain scenes. And it's kind of I don't know, I kind of like attack it as I'm working on it, and like feeling it out, if that makes sense, the story. Like I don't like go into it like I have this at each specific moment planned out perfectly. I just kind of like, I want this to happen. I'll start writing the episodes and we'll see what I can add into that moment. And I'll kind of like go as I go as I'm writing it, sort of.
Definitely. Do you feel like it develops with the visual side in tandem? Like it's a little bit more like being a storyboarder?
That's true. Yeah, probably. I've never like strictly been a storyboarder, but I can definitely
Mm.
see how it's very similar. I think it does. It is easier to because when I'm writing the episode, I kind of go straight into the thumbnails, so it is. It's a little bit closer to storyboarding a lot, I think.
How did you develop the idea originally?
Well, I tried to do a mermaid comic like this when I got out of college. It was like a very old version of this comic, but it was like my first attempt at making a web comic and posting it online. And it was going to be like this long form thing, but I kind of like had to step away from it to grow as an artist. So I kind of had this old idea that I could build upon and make changes to. And it's been like I've been tweaking it throughout the years, I guess. Um, So I don't know what my original. I had this really weird thing where the original idea came from. Have you ever played Kingdom Hearts?
I have, yes.
The first game, like the Atlantica section where Sora turns into a mermaid, that's where I got the idea for this comic.
That's awesome. I love it's you never know what's gonna like spark something and
Yeah,
cause all sorts of ideas to come loose. Something else I've noticed too is that you have these really big themes, but on a small dealing with it on a character based level as well, like this idea of fate versus free will, for example. Do you ever have any particular goals in mind when it comes to the kind of stories that you want to tell?
I do like going into stories more character focused in what
Mm.
they're feeling, and I kind of like project onto the characters, and it's like easier. Well, not fully project, but it's like, how would I react in this situation, and kind of like attack it from there, I guess. Because I'm like just writing from my own feelings, I guess. Um, but as far as like, I guess morals or what I'm like trying to get across in the story, hmm. I don't necessarily go into it like I want this to be the message, but there's
Mm.
like some things I kind of want to like explore. Like sometimes you have these stories where it's like this character has this grand destiny, and like sometimes I'm thinking like, how is he handling this? Like, is he super stressed out? Like, how is his like mental health right now with this giant epic thing that's going on? So I guess I sometimes approach it like from a smaller scale that way, just from that thought process.
Definitely, it's kind of like a subversion of tropes and just thinking about it from a personal level.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Well, as far as the visual aspect, it's a very beautiful comic. Do you have any major influences, or do you attribute anything in particular to how you've developed your style?
Well, I've always been really inspired by Ghibli films, even though I hesitate to say that because they're like such a high quality that I'm like, I'm not gonna compare it to Ghibli films or anything. Um, but other than that, I think like Avatar: The Last Airbender, I think that art style and that animation team had a lot of influence on just how I draw like character faces and expressions. And other than that, I don't know, there were a lot of things. I was when I got out of college, I was kind of like stuck in this art style that I like hated. But I like decided it was my art style. Like I draw noses and eyes this way and faces this way, and this is my style. And it like I was so like stuck in this style or this idea of having a style that like stunted my growth as an artist, and I like stopped improving because I was
Mm.
like, I'm in this style, and I hated it. So eventually, I think in like 2016, I was like, you know what? Screw this style. I'm done. I hate this style. And I finally started like just drawing like regular, like an anime look or like whatever kind of stuff I wanted. And I was like, oh, it was so easy to like branch out of that. I don't know why I was so stuck in this weird style.
That's a good piece of advice that I relate to but never really thought of. It's this idea of like you don't have to put yourself in a box. Like it's okay to grow and do what you actually want to do.
Yeah, I think that is helpful.
That's funny you mention Avatar because I find that the humor as well is you can see the influence there. There's moments of Castle Swimmer where I'll like startle people around me because I'm like reading on my phone and I'll laugh out loud.
I'm so glad.
uh,
Yeah, those are my favorite. I don't know. I feel like I pace my story based on like these jokes that I want to tell, these dumb little moments that I enjoy putting in there. Like it like helps me pace the story, I guess.
I can see that, and I think that by making the characters more likable in that way, it also makes the dramatic moments makes you more invested as well.
Yeah, I think so. Like I think it's a it's a good way to kind of like diffuse things and like control the tension, I guess.
Definitely. And that's something I haven't mentioned yet as well, is that it's also a love story in a way. Could you speak a little on wanting to include those romantic elements and perhaps how the community has sort of rallied around that?
I love that everybody loves the romance. I also love the romance. And I kind of wanted the romance to be like a big part of it, but I also kind of didn't want it to be a romance comic. I wanted to be like a fantasy comic that just happened to have a very strong romance in it. And so I've kind of been uh, balancing that a bit. But I like that it's kind of structured on their romance and a lot of their motivations is with the romance. I didn't want them to be like fully strict. Like I want them to have their own kind of goals and motivations and like plans aside. I don't want everything to just ride on this romance between them. I kind of want like it to just be a thing that's like connecting them all the time while they're just like struggling through the challenges and the events that are taking place.
Right. It's sort of a coming of age story in that sense as
Yeah.
well. So the other thing is that I suppose the elephant in the room is that it is very popular. So congratulations. Do you have any tips for people who are trying to market themselves, or how have you felt that you've been able to grow an audience?
Well, being picked up by Webtoon it'll definitely boost you a lot. I think I was kind of shocked at how well it did and how quickly it picked up. But Webtoon's very good about promoting comics, and getting them out there and getting them seen by other people. I think if you're like just starting out, like from scratch, you have like no followers or anything, you're an artist, you want to post your stuff online. I think the best thing to do is kind of like sort of get involved into like one of the kind of online art communities or like the art circles on Twitter or other social sites. Like just start posting your work and just start kind of chatting with people who are also doing the same thing. Kind of look for people who have similar interests, maybe posting some of the same like fan art or stuff, and just kind of I think a lot of it is like having good social skills and just like kind of being social and like putting yourself out there. So I think it's just a matter of talking to people and slowly over time like becoming part of a community and building up on that. I think that's the best way to start, I think.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think as artists, a lot of times we think that the key is shutting ourselves away when that's not
Yeah.
always the best. We need to talk to people sometimes too.
Yeah. Hmm.
So while you are having to perhaps shut yourself away, what do you do to ensure that you get everything done on time? I know we kind of got into this a little bit at the start with now that you have assistants and everything, but is there anything that helps you meet your goals in particular?
It's good to have uh, daily goals and try to meet them. I don't always meet my daily goals. I get kind of close to it, but our time management, that's something I'm still kind of working on. I need to improve on it a lot. I think it's important to take lots of breaks if you can, but make sure they don't go too long. It's also like I know for artists, you kind of like get into the rhythm of drawing, and it's good to like ride that out. I feel like I need advice on this. Like, I need you to give me advice on how to manage my time better.
Well, that's fair enough. I mean, clearly you're doing fine if
Thank you.
you're ahead of schedule. I think that's always kind of like it's always feeling like you would like to be more ahead than you
Yeah,
are.
yeah, definitely.
Do you see this project going on for a long time, or are you interested in other stories as well?
I am interested in other stories that I'd like to make. I think I'll definitely be working on this one for like another few years at least.
Hmm.
Like I see it being a good chunk of seasons because there's a lot more I could do with the characters, and I'd like to explore with it.
Have you done webcomics before now, or was this just the first one that took off? Or
I had the early version of this comic that was like kind of what got me started, and
Mm.
I approached it very professionally. I like made a website with WordPress. I was like, this is my website. Now I was super proud of it. I was very professional. It was real nice. But then I like abandoned that comic. So and then I was like, all right, I'm gonna make this other one. It's short. I'm just gonna slap it on these websites. And that one, it did a lot better because I was more experienced. And it was a short one. I think it was important for me to like finish a comic instead of just like and be like, this is just gonna be 40 pages and it's just gonna be a one shot and it'll be a complete product. It's very satisfying to complete something.
Right. And I'm curious, after Webtoon contacted you, did you have to redo a lot of the original version?
I mainly had to reformat it so it kind of worked
Mm.
with Webtoon's scrolling. I did a ton of like tweaking and reformatting the old art because it was made for like print, like pages, like a lot
Right.
of comics are. Um, so it was a lot of like moving stuff around, and we ended up like deleting a scene, and then I wrote a new scene to put in, and just like making it work better. And then like the first episode actually did not exist before I joined Webtoon, but like I needed like something to like better introduce everyone to like the idea of it. And I'm
Mm.
very happy with the first episode now that exists.
Definitely. Do you, because I know personally, I avoided wanting to do Webtoon because of the formatting thing. And I thought, well, I want this to be a book eventually, and I'm going to have to spend this time reformatting as well. But now that I am like a reader on there, I feel like this is the direction that all webcomics should go. So I was wondering, could you speak a little on how it's formatted specifically for mobile?
Yeah, I was on the same boat. I think I was like, I'm not crazy about this format. I'm very attached to the pages, and I didn't have a few um, ties to like wanting to print it. That was just something in the future. Maybe I'll have it printed. But I do agree that it's very good because most people are like on their phones anyway, and it's very smart to like just format all the comics so like you can read it really well on the phone, and it's just it just makes sense going forward, I guess, with technology and how everybody's consuming their media.
Yeah, I agree. Um, it does seem like, and what you were mentioning before, that Webtoon readers also, both for good and for bad, are very excited about the stories. And so
Mhm.
it creates a big demand where every episode has to be a certain length. Do you do anything in particular to ensure that you still have that work life balance and that you're prioritizing self care?
Yeah, I try to. It's a very demanding job. So, um, I'm mostly working. Now that I've hired like two assistants, I can actually like take a day off, which is very important. For a while there, I just didn't take a day off, and I was like a little bit miserable because I was just working all the time. But now I kind of have it where you're kind of I think each creator is kind of like in charge of how they're getting their work done. So a lot of it depends on you. Webtoon is very helpful. They'll give you time off if you need it. They'll give you like some leeway. They offer like, do you need some help? We can talk to people. They want to help you out as best they can. I think a lot of it is making you kind of have to because since it's your creative passion and project, you kind of want to give your everything into it and make it as perfect as you can. But you do have to make some if you're making things, you got to do it in a week and get it out as quickly as possible. You do have to make some creative sacrifices. So I think it's trying to figure out where you can cut corners, what you're willing to give up creatively, so you can just like maintain a healthy life.
Right.
Yeah.
It seems like there's always a struggle as an artist where what you love to do is also your passion, and so it can be difficult sometimes. Like when you're just trying to relax, you're like, I know I personally have that feeling of like, oh, I should be drawing. Or
It's such a constant.
as far as when you do have that downtime, what are you reading right now? Is there anything in particular that you're excited about?
I don't really read comics. I'm just kidding.
Oh, really?
um, I do. I'm trying to get caught up on all the other webtoons because there's some
Mm.
really good ones on there. Like, I love Mage and Demon Queen. I love Love Advice from the Duke of Hell is hilarious. Muted is good. Axed is hilarious. Everyone I've read on there has been like really good so far. I just wish I like could keep up. I wish I could take time off my webtoon to catch up on everybody else's webtoons.
Definitely. And I know that people can support you by reading the comic. Is there any other sites where people can check you out? Like, do you have a Patreon?
I don't really have an active Patreon. I'm on Twitter a lot. I'm Wendy Comics on Twitter. And I have Instagram. I think I'm like just Wendy Lian Martin on Instagram. I have a Tumblr. I wouldn't go to my Tumblr. It's just no one needs to go to my Tumblr. It's not really important. I forget I mentioned Tumblr. So it's Twitter and Instagram. I guess I'm on those ones.
Those are the most active.
Yeah.
Nice. And sorry, I'm going a little bit out of order here.
Oh, you're
I
good.
know you had mentioned when we were talking about the romantic aspect and how it's priority a like a fantasy story. I just
Mhm.
wanted to come back to that and ask you about genre, since that is something that's really important when someone is deciding what kind of stories they want to read. In particular about the fantasy genre is exciting to you?
I do like, I guess with fantasy, I love how you can just kind of like, it feels really satisfying creatively. Also, part of the reason I wanted to do a mermaid comic is because my style is very organic. I hate drawing like shapes. I hate drawing buildings and like, you know, proper perspective and like like just a lot of like modern day settings, like buildings and cities and all these kind of things. I'm like, I just want to draw like squiggly lines and plants. And I feel like making like a fantasy underwater comic worked perfectly for that.
Definitely. And it seems like with this newest season, we're getting a little bit more of the world building as well, especially since we're kind of leaving the castle, which we were kind
Yeah.
of
Mhm.
that the setting was focused on at the start. How do you go about with creature design and character design?
I think I really try to make things, since you have to draw these characters over and over, I try to make them very simple, but make them somewhat memorable, I guess. I try to focus on like the kind of the shape of them. Like I base each like person character off like a different kind of fish, and that
Mm.
gives me something to like build off of. It's like if I have, if I have like this shark, I have to make a character that's a shark. I can just look at a shark and steal aspects from like a shark and like apply it to my characters, but like simplify it so it's not too complicated to draw all the time. That's kind of the process I go about like creating characters. And I think it's since I'm like sort of limited to, I have this theme that I'm working off of because everything's underwater. It makes it easier to like be creative in the sense of like how you approach uh like buildings and like different things. It's like since it's underwater, these buildings can be like seashells or like other underwater things. It like helps me, it gives me more creative ideas to be like limited to the underwater setting, if that makes sense.
Definitely. I feel like it's almost more overwhelming when someone says you have free reign, but when you give
Yeah.
yourself a prompt like underwater, it sort of sparks more creativity in a way.
Yeah, definitely.
And as far as Just any final thoughts? Is there any advice that you would give to aspiring comic artists?
I think the best advice, not the best advice, I think the advice I would give is to be self-indulgent as much as you can. I think sometimes when you're making a comic, you're like, I want it to be the best, and I can't do this idea because this idea is popular, and I like got to do this and this. I think you should just like be totally self-indulgent. Like if you love vampires, make a vampire comic. It doesn't matter if there's a lot of vampires. I think you should just totally build up on your passion because I think the passion aspect is what's going to like you through the whole project. So I think it's just good to be completely self-indulgent.
I love that. I never would have thought of that, but that is so true. Like, don't limit yourself.
Yeah.
Definitely. Well, again, thank you so much. And we can find you on Instagram and Twitter most actively, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, again, I really appreciate your time. Yeah, thank you. Have a great rest of your day.
Yep, you too. Good talking to you.
Thank you again to Wendy for taking the time to speak with me. I hope you guys enjoyed listening. Check back next week on Monday for another installment of the podcast. Definitely be sure to check out Castle Swimmer and all of Wendy's social media. I also have my social media linked below. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Keep reading comics, keep being creative. Until next time.